You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie Michele, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Relatable. I am your host, Stephanie Michele. I feel like I've been gone a while because so much happened during the time between 4th of July and this show. And of course, you're going to hear about it because it's all about relating. So, there was a lot of relating bits, diss, and all-time greatest hits that happened in the last 7 days. And I'm going to share that. But first, I want to debut my new show cup. So if you can see it, of course, it says Relator. And then my favorite things to relate to, coffee, my dog, and of course, feel good relating. And just to be clear about feel good relating, because you hear me talk about it so much, I'm not just saying positive relating. I'm really going to take a cue from Georgia, my first guest on the show, and say, it's just about meaningful relating. So, sometimes it's deep and sad and, and it's frustrating and stuff, but as long as there's something learned and you can grow from it, that's the stuff I'm talking about. That stuff that just fills you up and gives you hope and connects you to people. So that's what feel good relating is. Now, I'll first start on some unsatisfactory relating occurrences that have happened in the last week. So whoever's listening in terms of my friends, they might be going, uh-oh, at this point, but it's okay. I love you and I'll protect you in this. So the first thing is I'm a big believer if you want people to be successful with you, you should give them the tools to do so. So I know who I am. I know what I want. I know what I need, and I'm not afraid to communicate that. In the same respect, I also know what does not work for me, and I'm willing to communicate that as well. So it should be no surprise to anyone that listens or watches the show that I'm probably close to it would be close to intolerable for me to interact with people that don't really care about relating, don't really care about being meaningful. And I don't make people guess this about me. I will make it clear about one thing in particular, which is I can't handle it if you're non-responsive to my communication. So i.e., hey, if I send you a text I'm thinking about you, I'm checking in with you or about something, I do expect something back, even if it's just an emoji con. I'm okay with that. Send me a thumbs up, a face, whatever. But just something, to check in. So that didn't happen in one situation in the last week. And so and it gets even worse in this thing. So imagine my surprise when this person, let's just call him a he of my past, decided to randomly text me at 1:30 in the morning on a Thursday with, and by the way, 30 days had gone by. I'd sent him 2 texts. It's just nice texts. Hey, what's going on? No response. So a whole month, and I've clearly stated that's not going to work for me. So it's it should be no surprise that we're not communicating anymore. So to get this text from him at 1:30 in the morning, it says, hey, I'm in your neighborhood. Can we come over? First of all, I'm not sure who he was. I don't know if he was hanging out with some minions or, had one in his pocket. I'm not even sure, where you would just invite random people over someone's house at 1:30. Not sure. But it really surprised me. I'm wow, that's pretty brave. And in the follow-up, to tell him how brave that was, I got to use some of my favorite swear words. And it gets even better. So his excuse for not responding to my texts was, for 30 days, mind you, for a month, was his adult daughter, not a 5-year-old, but his adult daughter broke her toe again. And he proceeded to tell me that with a picture of the toe. So for me, this is going to go down in my all-time relating bad stories as I did not need to see that visual for that lame-ass excuse text. I just don't get it, right? Oh, man. So, and here's my point. It would be so much easier for both of us in that situation if he would just acknowledge that he was in the wrong. Yeah, time had gone by, and, sorry about that. Because I think something that also people know about me is I'm always going to meet your authentic vulnerability with compassion, 100%. And I believe that most people are this way too. When you show up and just go, oh, I'm so sorry, here's what's going on, people will match that. And if they don't, it might be a clue to you to maybe limit your interaction with this person because that's never going to feel good. So another case in point, around this same thing, a friend of mine is struggling right now. And the result of that struggling was some hostility towards me, just words, but words that hurt. And after a few days of making tentative plans to connect with me and talk about that and then kind of flaking on that, I was taking that as, wow, this person does not, doesn't see that there's a priority in repairing our friendship. So on my end, I was feeling, just this steady, as I was recapping the situation and anticipating this awful conversation that was happening, I was just feeling like intense stuff, not good stuff in my body. So my stomach was just like full of knots and, anxious about it. And then I had the tense stress in my neck and shoulders and just like, just knowing we're going to have a difficult conversation and not looking forward to it. And then on Sunday, I just picked up the phone and called her. And the first thing she said to me was, "I'm so embarrassed." And in that moment, like all of the things that I was carrying that weren't great, they weren't going to be great for her. They weren't great for me. They were already physically causing me pain, just melted away because she was showing me her authentic self, and she was totally in the moment with me, and all I could do was meet her with compassion. And the result of that was a very safe conversation that was great for both of us. And that's my point. When you show up and you're present for it, it works better for both people. It's not just about being good, it's like actually something that's safer and easier for both people. And I just want to make that point. So, and in the case of, this is really like the reason I share this is not to out my friends. The reason that I do this show, that I really believe that we can do better together. And this does not mean, I know it's easy to not care about relating choices, but I can assure you that being able to reflect on how you're showing up in the world is the only thing that breaks through unfavorable experiences. Talking about how bad someone else is, blaming them for it, losing hope that anything can be different without taking action for it to be different will never change the experiences that we're having with each other. So with the heat of my past, I have enough history with this person to know that I don't feel good physically or emotionally when he does not see or honor who I am, or show up in a way that's like, yeah, I get what's important to you and I'm going to show up that way. And it also doesn't feel good to be mad at him. So the choice that I'm going to make is just love him from a distance. We're probably not going to be in each other's lives. We don't relate in the world the same way, and it's not fair for me to expect anything different from him. And so that's what I'm present to and connected to. I want to just talk about the 4th of July show a little bit before we talk about our bodies more. If you haven't watched it, you got to watch it. So it was with my 2 new girlfriends, Maddie and Adeline, ages 10 and 11. And what I was connected to in that moment, and what I'm still so inspired about, is how these 2 girls were just using their whole self to communicate who they are. You knew when they were excited, and you knew when they liked something, they would do this, And I just got so much energy and hope out of that, because it tells me that we already have what we need to connect with each other. We already know how to do it. We've learned it as a child. And unfortunately, as we've gotten older, we've put on masks to not show how we feel. And that's in the way, that's in the way of connecting. And I just really encourage people to take a look at that. And part of that is really looking at this. Like, what is this communicating? And what is it telling you? Like this weekend, my body was telling me, this situation is hurtful. This is causing anxiety. Like, what are you going to do to correct that and get through that? But when we ignore it, that stuff builds up, and there's more stress, and there's more anxiety, and there's more to worry about. So the whole point is, and why I'm sticking to this topic, again, your body is your ally. It's communicating at all times, is the more that we can be in the moment and be connected to this, the better it is for ourselves and everybody that we're relating to, yes. Right? So yes. With that being said, I'm so excited about having this chat again with a new person, Nancy Parker, who's to my left here. I just have one more thing to share before I tell you about Nancy and we get into our conversation. So this is not going to be a surprise to you guys, what I'm about to share, if you've been listening. I am carrying a major torch for you, every single person that's listening. I want so much for each and every one of you to have better interactions with each other and to be seen for who you are and to be loved for that. It is my pleasure to carry that torch, but it does get heavy, and I need continued support to keep that light on and to hold it high. I get most of that support through the community of the Relational Center. This is the place that I do my events. You guys have heard me talk about it. And I want you to know that they're holding their annual fundraiser this week. They sold out their tickets, thank God for the event, but it's not too late to donate. No donation is too small to be appreciated. I will post the link to Twitter after the show and share it in the archives of the show. And I just want you to consider your donation as a way to encourage me to continue to do this show, and as your own personal declaration to stand up for quality relating and believing that we can do better together. So that's my plea. Thank you for listening to it. Now, Nancy time. So let's meet Nancy. Nancy Parker helps people access their core intelligence and realign their life and bodies at all levels. Her programs have developed over 20 years of working with individuals and groups as a therapeutic movement specialist, holistic wellness coach, and practitioner of energy medicine. She founded In-Body Wisdom and ecstatic dance, thank you, a little tongue-tied here, dance in San Diego to create safe, sacred spaces to explore relating to and through the body. She holds playful spaces of permission to move with what may be in the way of having the depth of connection we all deeply crave. Reconnecting to this embodied wisdom enhances all relationships. We mean relating to ourselves, to your loved ones, and to the world around you with authenticity, playfulness, and presence. The results are healthy upgrades in body intelligence, emotional intelligence, intuitive intelligence, relational intelligence, and that ripple out into a vibrant life of ease, joy, and grace. Some of my favorite things. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so perfect. I feel so honored to be here and just divine alignment.
Yeah.
So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Yeah. I often say that I wish people watching could actually feel what I feel sometimes in the studio, and I do feel a certain connection to you already. And we've only talked, and I'd like people to know, Nancy and I did not know each other, or we've never met until today, but we've talked on the phone, and immediately it's like, yep, we're going to have some relational chemistry when we get in the studio, and I feel it. So thank you for being here. I ask everyone that sits in your spot to share anything that they might be present to that might be distracting them from the topic we're about to talk about, just as a way of like clearing it. Yeah. Is there anything that you want to share?
Well, it would be helpful for me if we could just take 3 breaths together.
Okay.
And just ground in together. Just nice, easy. In through the nose. Yeah. And while I already, as you mentioned, felt a relational connection, I feel like a coherence now in the space between us, and it feels more grounded in my body and being, and I think that just opens the pathway for flow and communication and for what I call magic, right, to unfold. So.
And for me, doing that, always when I rant about personal things, it's when I feel the most anxiety on the show. I'm pretty comfortable at this point, but when it's personal, it's a little. So just doing that and grounding myself to you, I'm like, oh yeah, that's gone, and now I'm here in the now, which grounded is what we're going to talk about.
And then grounded, and then created coherence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think the other thing I was present to before getting here, and then you spoke to it a bit in the opening, is the way we as adults hold back, like all this holding back of our authentic expression, and how that impacts our relating. Yeah. And maybe we hold back out of fear of being too direct or being too harsh, or out of fear of not knowing how to communicate it compassionately, or just out of being polite because we've been conditioned to like, oh, I shouldn't say that, it's not polite. And I think there's this skill, this art that we're cultivating, that people like yourself and myself and many other people now are cultivating the skill of integrating that balance between transparent communication and compassionate communication, and like weaving those two together so we actually can be more authentic in our expression. We can like deepen our connections with each other. We can have more of our desires show up because we're able to ask for them. And we're no longer like sacrificing ourselves or what we need or want in order to try to please someone else.
Absolutely. I call that safe communication. I think there's always a way to say something that's safe for you, so it doesn't feel, too exposed. I personally am kind of a vulnerability extreme sportist, so I'll go there. I'm like, oh, this is how we learn, so if I'm uncomfortable. But I know that's hard for some people. But safe often means using everything you have to say it. So I got to tell you something. People respond when they see the sadness or the discomfort in the face and the body. Oh, I gotta pay attention to this person. There's something going on here. And I think that immediately creates some safety. And then when you can share in a way that's not, this is not about you, what you did. It's like, I'm going to just own my own role in it right now. This is how I'm feeling. This is why it causes me this, this feeling. But that's helpful, and we can be compassionate. It's easier for people to be compassionate in those times.
Yeah. And it just takes being vulnerable enough, like your friend, to go, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed, to create that instant, like, softening in you.
Yes.
So that then you can meet and have that clearing.
The instant cure to everything that was going on in my body. I mean, I literally could feel all of that tension go, whoosh, it's just gone. When I heard her voice and I heard those words, I'm like, oh yeah, this is my friend, So, yeah, I'm like, this might be a tearful show. I can feel it kind of coming.
I warned you.
Yeah, I know.
Cry.
Yeah, you warned me. You might feel it. Now we're like resonating. So it's like, okay, I'm on the same wavelength. All right, well, let's get into it. So what was your earliest memory that connected you to the why behind what you do right now? So you work with people to do this work, to align their bodies, help them communicate, help them relate. Like, what's the why behind that? Maybe the earliest why.
Yeah. Well, when I dropped back into my childhood, I remember being a very shy child, very shy. And I didn't understand it at the time. And of course, I judged it later as, being wrong and tried to change it. But once I realized that my shyness was just a reflection of an incredible sensitivity, that I was just really sensitive. I perceived beyond the five senses. I perceived beyond what was being said and what was being felt or thought. Yeah. And or the energy of the person. You ever just walk into a room and the energy is really crazy? Someone just had an argument or something.
Yes.
And so, this is real. We've all had that experience. But as a child, I think I was just like this, it felt like I had no skin or something. So I was just really shy and also really sensitive. And as I got older, I thought, oh, I'm socially awkward. I'm just meant to be a loner. Something's wrong with me. All those stories that we tell ourselves.
Then people label it and they say introvert, and then they all these different labels we learn as adults and go, oh, I'm that. And now your identity is towards, I got to do these things and stuff.
Yeah. And it created a lot of challenge for me. It created a lot of, feeling like not belonging. And even though I had lots of friends in different social circles, I never really felt like I belonged.
We're similar in that way.
And I never really went deep within, now I go deep with everybody. But well, not everybody. I'm discerning.
If they choose.
And if they choose, yes.
They can meet you.
If there's a yes.
Yeah.
But, I worked with that for a long time and judged it. And a teacher, one of my teachers, Thomas Hubel, it was just a few years ago, he said, your shyness is a gift, and it's just reflective of this inherent sensitivity. And how about approaching with it and trusting it, and instead of trying to make it different? And who says you have to be like, I am confident, I am outgoing, I am bold, and there are moments that's an authentic expression for me, but more often it's kind of laid back and observing and sensing if everything is safe to step into.
Yes.
And so my earliest childhood memories of that shyness, even leading through my early adulthood, just really, as I learned to navigate with it and learn that there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just a sensitivity, it's a skill that can be cultivated.
Yeah.
You can turn up or down the dial at will. I just realized there's a whole bunch of people like me out there who need this information.
Right. I love that. Shyness is often playful.
Yes.
Shyness can be very playful. I like shyness. So what does it mean to be aligned in life and body on all levels? You talked about that in your bio.
Yeah, so being aligned physically in the body. So part of my work, I started out in a fusion of the field between physical therapy and personal training. And so really looking at bodies, looking where their structure is out of alignment, figuring out what needed to happen to help it get into better alignment, teaching the individual or the group how to do that for their bodies. So they create this solid physical foundation, and then going in and dealing with whatever habits or lifestyle or nutrition choices are throwing the physical body out of balance. But then realizing that the emotions affect the body, our thoughts affect the body, and our lack of connection to something greater than ourselves. You know, so the way they all weave together. And to be honest, I would include physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, sexual, and energetic, like all of those bodies. But
how would you say, too, what you put into it? I think nutrition is that, too. It's like, you know,
exactly.
like what would we call that?
Nutrition.
Yeah.
Well,
whatever
that's part
you
of the
put in.
physical body.
Yeah.
You know, we are what we eat.
Yeah.
We are what we put in, whether it's in our environment and toxic people and what we're tolerating, or it's
Orange Cheetos.
Yeah. Do those even exist anymore?
Yeah,
People
they
eat
do.
Those?
Yeah,
I
they
know.
do.
I know. I go home to visit, and I'm like, oh, in Florida, people, this is normal.
Yeah.
This is like, not an indulgence. It's just what they do.
Yeah.
What?
Well, there's many places, there's many places that people don't have other choices. Like, just like their grocery store is like full of really processed stuff, and they don't really get to experience other stuff, and they just don't know, you know, like that. There's a difference when you eat pure stuff. Like, we're lucky in California because you cannot not go somewhere and find healthy choices. And I've experienced it. It's no joke. So my friends in Michigan listening going, oh, Stephanie, she's ranting on being a Californian again. But it's no joke when you eat healthy, how different you feel as opposed to like eating fast food or sodas and things like that. Like there is a clear difference in how you feel.
And clear is the key word. I mean, there's clarity of thought, there's clear energy, there's a clear ability to interpret the information coming in from the environment, how other people are feeling or thinking. And I think on some levels, some people like myself who are very sensitive, and I think we all have that capacity, by the way, to be that sensitive. We are all empaths. It's just most of us have flipped the switch off and don't want to flip it back on again, and we keep it dulled with foods that aren't keeping our body clear, because it's easier to medicate ourselves, to dampen our feeling so we don't have to feel.
Food or anything. There's so many more things that we have to, that are out there that we can dull it with, you know, the phone, the consumption of content, you know, social media. Just buying could be a thing, you know, hoarding could be a thing. Like, there's just so much, we're exposed to so much more.
Shopping,
to dull it, you know, to not like, to not be, I hate this term woke. I don't know why, it just seems funny. But like, to just not be on the other side of like, wow, this is what's best for me. Like, authentically just being who you are is the best feeling in the world. Like, because that's like the core of self-love, and experiencing that, then you're now able to feel it with other people. A friend of mine always says you can't transmit what you don't have. You know, so it starts here to just go, oh, this is who I am. Oh, I like it. You know, now I can connect with other people.
And so when we have that clarity in our body, then we have, and you know, meditation and things, and just, but literally cleaning all the junk out of our body creates more clarity in our mental, emotional state. And then we go into meditation and we connect to, you know, something beyond ourselves, outside of ourselves, or, you know, the earth, or, you know, whatever you connect to. No judgments. All is welcome here. That, you know, that is what creates this clear, clean vessel for what I feel is vibrant, radiant, connected, nourishing living. And
how else could you say? So, you know, I mean, I grew up in Michigan. I grew up in a place where we're not exposed to all the things that we have in California, and just nature sometimes. Like, the real reason that I moved to California was the first time that I came out and I saw succulents and flowers blooming. I'm like, oh my God, I have to be here. Like, it was nothing to do with Hollywood or any of the portrayals of California and Los Angeles. It was just all about, I feel so connected to nature, and this is working for me. Yeah. So, what else can we share as the why to get in touch and be authentic? Like, if you've never been exposed to thinking this way, what else could be the possible why to share?
Wow. The challenge is, I think if you've never been exposed to thinking this way, I think even still, if you haven't been exposed to it, you've had moments where the veil lifted or the blinds lifted a little bit, and you had a little peak of, like, a peak experience or a peak moment, and you think, oh my gosh, that's the best moment of my life, right? And then maybe you savor it, maybe you don't, right? And then it's gone, and then you think, well, that's it, it's gone. I may never experience that again. But when you live this way, you get to experience that daily.
Yeah.
I mean, almost on the daily. Now, does that mean that lifey stuff doesn't happen too? No, life still happens. You get infections, and you get, the Uber driver takes the wrong direction, or the GPS starts running me in circles, or, whatever it is. You have challenges in your relationships, but those magic moments of synchronicity, right? They just start to show up, and it's just like the normal. Instead of the exception, it's the norm.
I love that you mentioned that we've all glimpsed it. I believe that too. And so one of the things I do this regular event at the Relational Center that I talked about earlier called Public Shared Appearance, affectionately called PSE. And what I'm doing there is to give people that moment. And I've got it down. It's a sequence of things, and everybody feels that moment. It's like the switch is on. Yeah. And it's like, and they're so shocked, and they look at me like, what kind of weird spiritual guru are you? And how psychic? What's happening? Like, there's psychic energy here. I'm like, no. It's that experience and why it feels so special is we're not feeling it that often, right? Yeah. But we are so capable of it. It's already, everything we need is already there to experience that. It's not like, oh, it's not for me. I can't be loved. I can't be seen. No, you can. And it's so simple what we do to get there, but so profound. Yeah. So I like you thinking that, yes, I believe also that people have had it and they've forgotten it, and and they lose hope. Mm-hmm. That they can feel it, whether it be through intimate relationships or, some challenges in our family relationships or whatever, but they lose hope and then they stop trying anymore. Yeah. And I will die, and I hope it's on my tombstone that I helped make a difference in this area, that like I gave people that moment and they kept their switch on. Yeah. And they felt it more, and then the bad moments, the ones that impact you in a harmful way, those become the things that are far and few and less, But it's the good stuff of like, I can smell flowers, I see the world, I'm being seen, I feel loved. Yeah.
And when those, I like to call them the uncomfortable or difficult moments, we judge as bad or good, but that can be a little slippery slope.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if we can learn to be with those, when we have so many more, let's say, comfortable, pleasant, ecstatic, joyful moments of grace. Yes. Then when those uncomfortable or difficult moments occur, we are grounded in the solid base of the knowing that this is just a moment. Yeah. And it doesn't suck us down into the pit. Yes. Right? We can sit down in it and be with it and not get lost in the blackness of it. Yeah. And I think that's super important, because as a society we tend to avoid those uncomfortable emotions like anger or sadness or grief or resentment or whatever they are, because we feel like out of control. Mm-hmm. Like they'll go on forever, I'll get sucked into them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why we get sucked into them, because we repress them for so long that they become these big looming clouds. And if we just have spaces and places where they're okay, they're permissioned, as well as the joy and the love and the connection and the nourishment is getting ignited. I think, that's obviously a big part of my why, and I think that's why we're sitting across from each other right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I intended to ask this later, but I'm going to ask it now because it just came up. So you mentioned grace in that share. What does grace mean to you? I mean, her Twitter handle, or not her Twitter handle, her Instagram handle is Trust Grace. So I know this is a big topic for her, and it is for me. And I think it's the most confusing thing about what I stand for to so many. So I want to have this conversation about what does it mean to you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll say that when you reached out, one of the first things I did was go on your website, and I'm like, she has this whole thing just talking about grace. How cool. And then I chose the name Trust Grace as a reminder for myself to remember to trust. In this case, what I refer to as like the divine alignment, the divine within, like, because I think, we hold that divine spark within us, and also, to connect to that greater divine outside of us, to trust the flow. So flow, ease, but also with grace, there's like this, like refinement. There's this poise, or and if you can just feel that and hold that and follow it, I think that's when, for me, that's when the magic occurs. And then when I fall out of that, when I start resisting it because it's against what I think I might want or know, because my ego thinks it knows better, or no one else does that, right?
Right. We don't have ego problems in Los Angeles, California. No, like, that's not a thing. That's when life gets challenging. That's when more difficult moments come up. That's when my body starts giving me signs to slow down. Yeah.
Right? So for me, grace is that sense of connection to the divine, being aligned, paying attention to the whispers of clues guiding me where to go. And there is that element of like refinement or elegance or grace to it, or poise to it.
Yeah. I can relate to that. So mine's similar but different. So I want to make a point to say grace is not a religious thing. So Nancy's talking about the divine, like how you describe a relationship with God or a belief in something bigger than you is all you. However you want to describe that, it's all you. It's probably the same thing. We're all talking about the same thing. That's my guess. But it's you. It does not require you to believe a certain religion. It's not a religious word whatsoever.
Not at all.
And so for me, what it is just believing that energy is always available to you. That there is an inspirational energy around us at all times, and we get to choose if we're going to tap into it or not. And sometimes that information comes through interaction with another person, where a person could just look at you or say something to you and you're like, damn it, I totally needed to hear that in this moment. And I received that. And that was a gift for me.
Yes.
It can even be sort of, it could be harsh. It could come in a different container. Like, you don't want to believe this thing that someone's saying to you. But later you reflect on it and go, oh, yeah, that was really meant for me to hear. Like, I totally needed that. So I look at grace like that. It's something that's available to everybody at all times, and it does not require you to believe a certain religion. And I think that there are challenges in that area right now that many have gotten disenchanted with religion, and so they just throw everything out. They throw any connection to anything bigger than them out, and I just encourage people to not do that, because I've experienced it myself, and I know how good it feels, and this is one of these things that I want people to experience. So the word grace is really important to me. The concept of grace, experiencing it, being able to do certain things to put people in a place that facilitates that they'll be able to, experience that inspiration, more often than not, And it is, and then the other side of it, and it is just light. It is a very graceful, elegant kind of thing. Oh, it was so simple.
Yeah.
And yet so profound,
Yeah. Well, I love you giving kind of a more concrete example. Sometimes I'll ask a question and I'm guided to a book on my bookshelf, and I open it and there's the answer. And that is how I define grace.
Yeah.
Or I get the hint to not go the way I usually go, only to find out there was a traffic backup or an accident.
Yes.
Or I go a different way and I wind up crossing paths with someone who I wouldn't have crossed paths with, who gives me a download, an answer to, who speaks to something that's been an internal question, or who reflects something that I've been feeling, insecure about, or, and so that's grace.
The 2 shows ago, a co-host has another show here, a fabulous woman. I came into the studio wearing a green shirt, and we're in a green studio, and I would have been a talking head. In fact, it was the first in the series of talking about your body as a communication ally.
That would have been fun.
Right? And so here I am in a green shirt, and I would have been a talking head talking about how important your body is. And without hesitation, she took her own shirt off and traded with me. And that's grace. Like, it was flowing through her. Like, she didn't even hesitate and go through all the, the mask. Oh, what's going to happen to me? I mean, she took her shirt off and gave it to me, and we exchanged shirts, and I didn't have a green shirt on for that episode. So those things are just so touching, and they're life-giving. They're they actually provide a lot of energy, and I think there's a lot of things in the world that just drain us and create a lot of fatigue, and we need more things like this that actually put the fuel in our tanks that we can go out and make a difference and do the work that we want to do and be a good parent, a friend, whatever it is.
Little sparks of love.
Yes.
And you brought it back to, it's not about religion, it's not about God. I think there's a lot of separation that's been resulting of the conflict between that. And I myself went through that whole phase of disconnecting from everything and disillusioned with seeing the way the systems were very dogmatic, and anyway and came back to this space of grace. But I think when we tune into it, there's a lot of research and science with Heart Math Institute on the field of the heart. So when I talk about connecting to the divine, it could be this field of energy that exists between us that we already know is palpable. I can feel when I walked in a resonance. My hair started to stand up a little bit. My body's oh yeah, this feels good in here. Right? The heart space in here is really good. And whether you can sense that consciously or not, it's going on, and there's research to prove it. So, for those very scientific-minded people, right, it doesn't have to you don't have to go anywhere around God if you don't want to, right?
Go around love, honestly.
Exactly.
Go if the God concept is hard for you, go around love.
Because as I said, these are just little moments of love, little sparks of love, little tidbits of love being dropped in, saying, here you go. And the most important thing I have learned when they show up is gratitude.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. We do that at PSE too. We just it's the best way for you to connect with another human being, to be connected to what you are grateful for. Because when you tell when you articulate your gratefulness, whether it be through a practice when you wake up in the morning, a journal or whatever, and you're connected to that, you show up that way, kind of communicating and sharing that with others. First of all, people get a sense of your values and beliefs, and we connect when we know that. When we get a sense for the why behind what we do. I talk about this a lot on the show. Your what friends are going to be your hey, let's go have a beer friends. Your why friends know why you do what you do, and they've got your back, and they're oh, I know this is going to bug her. I need to call her. She needs support right now. So gratitude connects you to your values and beliefs. Being able to state that, people get to know you, they feel connected to you. There's more deep connection in that moment.
Oh, grateful for my Y friends.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I love, shout out to my Y friends.
You know who you are.
Yeah. You probably say something to them in a Heartswell moment. Yeah, Y friends are fantastic, So we're already kind of talking about it, and I like to be more the antidote on the show for these things, but let's talk about what really is a threat to being authentic and being in our bodies and being able to have connection in our cultures right now. We're going to we're talking about the antidote, but we can't not do that without addressing some of these things that are out there that are threatening it.
Yeah. Well, the obvious, we've spoken about, food and nutrition and technology, and thank you for technology, because that's why we're doing this right now. But there's a healthy relationship we can cultivate with it, just like we can cultivate healthy or unhealthy relationships with each other. And I just think all of those things create a dulling of our senses. They create a dulling of our senses and a dulling of our inspiration.
Easier to mask, maybe.
Easy to mask. Yeah. It dulls our inspiration, and we're also a little easier to control that way.
Big time.
So, I'm I don't know how big you want me to go, but I'm going to start with those simple, basic things.
No, we could go there, because everybody knows I go there. I'm not anti-technology either, but I'm telling you, now there's so much science out there right now about how every time your phone rings or notification goes off on your phone for some stupid app that you probably don't need, you're reacting like this, okay? And that's creating a lot of tense, feelings in your body, and it's actually training you it's rewiring your brain to only react to that, to the point that you can only respond to chaos and multitasking, which is definitely proven to not be healthy. Yes. So that alone, the phone, and what's so great about that is, that sounds funny. What's great about that, actually, what I'm excited about in this space is there are social architects that are leaving Google and leaving Facebook and saying, just because we can do this, like just because we can make everything so addictive, we shouldn't. In particular, there's this organization called Time Well Spent, and I'll share this in the archives. It's this guy named Tristan Harris that left Google, was a social architect, and he's basically saying we've gone too far. Mm-hmm. We've really gone too far. This should not be taking our time. It should be saving us time, and then we should be looking at ways to enhance this more than just like being on the phone all day long crushing candies or whatever it is, or so. And I know you shared a story. So I'm now, a couple weeks ago, I turned off all notifications on my phone. Nothing blinks. Nothing makes a noise. The only thing that I will hear is the actual phone ringing. And it's fantastic. Yes. I'm still checking it. I don't think any of my friends have felt like, oh, she didn't answer my text right away, because I never answer them that quick anyways. But it's just so fantastic. I feel like I've regained my life. Yeah. And I know you did something similar.
Well, by force.
Yeah.
Back in February, I lost my phone. And I was just moving into a new place, all by myself, had my own place, and I lost my phone, and I kept thinking it would show up. Yeah. So I waited a few days, and those first 3 days to a week suddenly had all this space and all this, and I am not one who was always tied to my phone, so I didn't have the perception of myself as addicted to my phone until I lost it. Yeah. And then I realized how addicted I really was. To when I was bored, tuning out and scrolling instead of picking up a book or calling a friend or listening to a podcast or something more engaging or getting out in nature. Like I would just sit and do this. And literally those 3 days, I felt like I was withdrawing from a drug. I was anxious. I was unsettled. I would find myself pacing around my apartment. And it's not like I didn't have my computer. I had internet. I was, those things. I still had access to the world, but I really was aware how much I was addicted to my phone. So I wound up going a month without a phone. And it was amazing. The only way I could check messages was on my computer. So when I was home, and everyone knew, all my clients knew, all my friends knew. If they didn't know, well, oh well. But I shared with everyone. And so they just knew, like, you have to plan. Yeah. You have to plan if you want to see me. Yeah. You have to plan if things need to change.
Such a novel concept.
Communicate. I know.
Intentional experiences. Like, I love the idea of like, hey, I care enough about you. I want to have an intentional experience with you. So let's plan for lunch next week, right? Yeah. Like, that's such a gift. Like, why? I could rant on that for a while.
Yeah, I love that. I call it intentional containers. Yeah. Like, I'm a big fan of, like, I work really well when I have this clear container. Yeah. Right? And, like, oh, there's this intention to connect. Okay, great. Yes. Now I can relax into that.
I work the
like
same
waiting
way.
To find and. Yeah.
Even when you're sharing this experience, my body is like I resonate with it. I remember I've had my own experience. I say it all the time on here. I'm just as susceptible to this stuff as anybody else. And I definitely have had days where I'm like, like I've got to get to the phone, or I've missed something, or I checked it too much, and I know that now there's messages that I have to, like, well, where did I even get that I have to respond to? And then I'm scrolling, and then I'm thinking about, oh, well, her dress is prettier than mine, or like whatever it is, And I actually can feel that when you talk about it, because I know what it feels like, and it's awful. Yeah. Like, why would we do that to ourselves?
Yeah. And it created this sense of like, oh, because you can access me at any time, that I am now suddenly responsible for responding to you right away. Yeah. And like there's all this pressure, and I'm speaking to me, but I notice it with my friends and my clients. Like a lot of the stress they're carrying around is like, oh, someone just messaged me, I have to message them back. I'm like, actually, no, you don't.
No.
Set time. I set a time. I'm like, oh, the messages are coming in. I have 15 minutes later. I'm going to look at them all and respond. And I turned off all of their notifications, so I don't have Facebook pinging me. I don't have Instagram pinging me. They're all there. Yeah. I can find them, but it's not because one of the most beautiful things was I was no longer getting pulled out of my flow by these things coming in that were demanding, self-imposed, demanding my attention.
Right. And in doing that, so you might be listening and going, well, I wasn't demanding, or like, I don't, like, you might be having some feelings about being on the other side of that and somebody thinking that that's demanding. But in reality, when someone's, not so responsive and able to be in their own presence, they actually have better loving energy for you.
Yes.
So you want that. You want that interaction. And if you feel like, if you try either one of these things that Nancy and I are talking about, taking a 30-day break from your phone or turning off all notifications, if you try that and you feel like you have some energy around, like, I need to tell somebody, that because I would respond really quickly, what a great opportunity to show up authentically with what you want. Yes. I mean, to have that conversation, right? Hey, I'm doing this because I actually experience a lot of stress from answering the phone all the time, and I know you love me and you don't want me to experience the stress, right?
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity to, like, tell someone, but not most people get that.
Yeah.
Most of my friends and colleagues are trying to find their own way through this thing right now and find their own balance with it. And so we're all doing a little bit of experimenting. The other one, too, not checking it right when you wake up.
Yeah, airplane mode.
Yeah.
So I have, when I did get my phone back, and I have my technology, I'm grateful for it. I upgraded. I used the opportunity to really get what I exactly wanted instead of rushing ahead and getting something really quick to replace it. I'm like, I don't know what I want yet. I'm just going to, like, be with it and feel it out and see. But when I did get my phone back, I think I shared with you, one of the things I started doing was leaving it on airplane mode in the morning until I've gotten up and I've done my self-care. I've, gotten my tea, I've done some stretching, I've
coffee, and then the dog.
Right. And then I'll turn it on and see if there's any, like, important things that I definitely need to respond to right away, or I just bookmark later to come back and respond to the messages. And my whole system, like, it just shifts the whole energy of the day, because suddenly you're not scrolling social media and triggered by someone who you think is cuter than you or smarter than you or
younger
or whatever.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
All right. So one more question, I think, on this topic. So again, I want to really speak to people that this is kind of foreign, maybe some eye rolling has happened during the show. They're like, oh, these ladies talking about their bodies, whatever. What would you say are some things that you can just experience being more fully present in your body? If it's new and somebody just wanted to, like, kind of, just put their tippy toe in this experience of being fully present, what would you tell them?
Yeah. Pleasure would be the first thing that comes to mind.
I like that. I don't even want my parents to know what I'm actually thinking about in that moment. But yeah, it sounds good to me.
But just really enjoyment. There's this feeling of bliss. There's this feeling of joy, and there's this feeling of pleasure. And there is that, like, association with pleasure and, like, it's got to be over here in the corner, in the dark, and we shouldn't talk about it. But, like, this is pleasurable. Yeah. Like me being here with you right now, I'm in my body and I'm in my heart, and it's pleasure. Like, it's enlivening.
There's a lightness to it, right? Yeah. I don't know how I'm challenged myself. Like, I know what it feels like to feel heavy, like heavy thoughts and heavy burdens and stuff. And when you just lean into, like, just the moment, I'm just going to accept it for what it is. I'm going to love myself. I'm going to start maybe by saying some things that I'm grateful for, and just kind of feeling your way through the day and moving, a little bit of dance. Maybe it's meditation and, like, laying down and kind of connected to every part of your body. Like, all of those things will create a lightness that is so much easier than the other stuff.
Yeah, the trudging through, versus just a grace through the day. There's an ease in the body and in the mind and in relating. And then when things come up, like someone cuts you off in traffic, your blood pressure doesn't have to skyrocket through the roof, screaming at them. You just wave and go, oh, okay. And send some compassion and love. And wow, that shifts. Then I don't have a headache. Then I'm not dealing with back pain. Then, my stomach, I don't have that ulcer anymore, So all these, we have to go through some of those aches and pains when coming back into this awareness of the body. and they also, we move through them, or we can get stuck in them. So having good support system, good network, good counsel, friends, coaches, mentors.
Being able just to communicate it in the moment. It's like, I feel this, now can I share it with somebody, and then what can I do about it?
Yeah.
Can I move? Can I tend to ignore my hunger because I'm working at my desk and go, oh, I'm hungry, I got a body, I forgot, But, feeling that in the moment and then allowing yourself to eat. And like Hillary said, Hillary was the first one in the series, was like, just enjoying eating a strawberry, like really just sitting in the moment and doing that, like leaning into the enjoyment, not, oh, I just have to fastly eat to kind of go back and do my work. That it's enjoying a strawberry is going to feel better than that.
There's a savoring of life. Yeah. There's a savoring of the strawberry or of the moment or of the flower, of the clouds, and that really shifts. You're in this state of harmony. I spoke to coherence at the beginning, but like if you've never experienced that, if your comfort state is one of chaos, and there's a lot of people out there who are like that, they're not comfortable in that coherent, peaceful state. Yeah. Because then thoughts can be heard and feelings can be felt, right? But when you learn to be comfortable with all of that and just allow all of those to flow through, like the clouds flowing through the sky, then that sense of harmony and joy, enjoyment, like truly enjoying life.
There's one more thing I want to say about this, and we're going to move off because we're running out of time. I like this concept that, like, the concept of flexibility, okay? And some of what we're talking about is like being flexible in the moment, okay? And being flexible in the moment is easier, safer for everybody, right? Because you're able to receive and connect, receive messages and connect. And flexibility, like, is the thing we take for granted the most. Like, we might think, oh, well, control is the way to go. Like, I got to be in control of everything all the time and the situation and the outcomes, which you can't, by the way. So trying to achieve that is good luck with that. But the idea, giving a lot of thought about the power of flexibility. Like, without the flexibility of my knee, I could not walk. Yeah. There's so much power in my knee because it's flexible that allows me to go to where I want to go and dance and feel pleasure and, so just think about that, lean into your own flexibility and be playful and see what's there. And, I suspected some good stuff, like, so we're running close to the end of the show. One thing that I like to do, because we definitely know what you're into and what you're passionate about, and we learned a little bit about your work, but I like people to know a little bit more about my guests and show that at any given time the circumstances can change and how we're relating, and there's always more information in the room. Like, you have a lot of hobbies, there's all kinds of stuff I don't know about you. Yeah. So the way that I just try to get it out is to find a random question to ask my guests. And they're silly, and I never know what's in this box. I'm just going to go for it. They've been kind of boring lately. Let's see. This is funny. This is totally appropriate for the show. Can you do any weird tricks with your face or body?
Not especially. I mean, I suppose I could make a weird face.
Yeah. Can you tie a cherry top? There you go.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. You look at your mom? Oh, that's hilarious. The first fish lips. Not to be confused with duck lips, by the way.
Totally different.
Right? Totally different
It's going to be the new thing on Instagram, fish
lips. Maybe it should. Maybe that's the social challenge of the week is we're so oh, let's make our duck face selfies. Maybe it should be a fish face. Yeah. Go with the vulnerability of that.
Stop taking ourselves so seriously, right? Be more playful.
Totally. Yeah. I dig it. All right. So we are at the end of the show, and this is the segment that I call Heart Swell. And the idea behind this is, I want it to be less scary for people to just share what's going on, in a very authentic way, whether that, that it's express sadness or you have to, it's an act of forgiveness or just a tribute, but just going deep and going, I really want to give this shout out to this person, and it's really meaningful for me to do this. And the reason why I ask guests to do this is just to show that it's not so scary. And I believe that the more we see people sharing deep emotion, it raises the level of empathy in the world. And of course, I want that. Yes. Yeah. So are you comfortable sharing a heart swell?
Yes.
Okay. When you are ready, just look at the camera and talk to that person.
Okay. Well, first, I just have to say thanks to Mom and Dad for always being supportive, even when you have know, you couldn't understand what it is I'm doing, and you
I've
are wondering
experienced
what
that.
craziness I'm into. You've just always been loving and supporting, and so I just, you know I love you, but I'm going to tell you again. Thank you. But my heart swell really goes to a woman I met on the dance floor, and it was 10/10/10, October 10th, 2010. And as circumstances would have it, we wound up sharing a space together. We moved in together on 1/1/11.
Wow.
January 1st,
Wow.
2011,
Yeah.
for a short period of time.
Uh-huh.
And that period of time transformed my life. I was already into dance as my meditation practice, as my spiritual practice, if you will. But this woman, who is just amazing, her name is Gwendolyn Tara, she opened up so much in me and really helped me see that I wasn't crazy, that all the things that I was sensing and feeling and perceiving and receiving were actually really happening. And so I couldn't deny it anymore. I couldn't just brush it off as crazy. And started helping me, give me some tools to learn how to work with that and navigate it. And she also, by some strange twist of fate, wound up sharing her years and years and years and years of music. And she had been creating conscious dance. She had been creating dance journeys for at least a decade.
Wow.
And she happened to have to put it all on my computer. And so suddenly I had all this amazing, rich, like just powerful transmission of her work, both through her living with me and long after with her music. And it really opened the door to me sharing movement and dance as a sacred place of play with each other, with deepening our connection to ourselves, and to really see that that was possible and that people really needed it and really transformed and benefited from it. So thank you, Gwendolyn. I hope you're watching.
We'll make sure she gets it. We'll make sure she gets to see this. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Great time spending with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So you can learn more about Nancy and her work at inbodywisdom.com, and of course I'll share that in the archives after the show. And you can follow her on Instagram at trust_grace. And we're going to take a break from this topic, and then we'll come back and hit it again. So there's going to be one more on this topic. So important to me. I really feel compelled to put more energy and more thoughts around, being in your body, and it's helping you communicate and helping you connect. So there'll be one more. But next week we are going to do a show about addiction and sobriety. And I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and it could be a tearful one, but it will definitely be meaningful, and it will definitely at the end feel good to tune into that and learn some things there. In the meantime, you can find the archives on stephaniemichele.com. Follow me on Twitter at LoveMoreNow, and Instagram at RelateWithSteph. The social challenge of the day, I kind of really do like the idea of people posting a fish face, like just to experience vulnerability. Like, hey, take a picture of yourself, and even if it's not great, post it. I kind of dig that. I think that would be cool. I also wrote down to just like maybe use music to do some body checks. Like pull out some old music and like connect to some memories and go, what am I feeling? And then ask yourself why 3 times. Why is that coming up? Why is that coming up? So it will give you sort of a connection to, and pay attention to where you're feeling it. So like, oh yeah, I'm the kind of person that when I have anxiety, it hits me in my stomach. So the next time you have a stomach ache, go, oh, what am I anxious about? And make some adjustments. So
brilliant.
Those are the 2 things. Let's connect with music and make a fish face. I don't know how they can be so different, but I'll let you choose. Let me know. Let us both know how that goes for you on Instagram. And that brings us to the end. And as always, I just encourage everybody to relate with more curiosity. And if it's playful, even better.
You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie Michele, only on LA Talk Radio.